Access to behavioral health services is a critical issue in South Jersey. AtlantiCare Behavioral Health is making a difference. We learned about their important health services. We also meet a young talented Cuban playwright and the story she is sharing that is inspired by her family's history as exiles from Cuba. It's all here on the next Latino Motion. Join us.
Choose quality, value, distinction. Choose Stockton.
Latino Motion with Bart Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation, and Stockton University. This edition of Latino Motion with Bart Lopez is brought to you by the HD Studios at the campus of Stockton University. Funding for Latino Motion is provided by AtlantiCare, healthcare you can believe in. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas. Welcome to Latino Motion, a weekly interview show highlighting issues impacting New Jersey's Latino community while advancing understanding of Latino cultural heritage and contributions to our society. And here is your host, Bart Lopez.
Buenos dias and welcome to Latino Motion. AtlantiCare Behavioral Health is one of South Jersey's largest providers of mental health and family care social services. Joining me is the Senior Director of Clinical Services, Loyal Ones, to discuss ABH's extensive services. Loyal, welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you for inviting me, Bert.
Well, just for disclosure, I'm a board of AtlantiCare and certainly been involved with behavioral health for many, many years. And it's a great organization, but a lot of people don't know all the services that are provided. Just give me a little recap in terms of what ABH is.
ABH is a part of AtlantiCare Health System, and we oversee the behavioral health services for AtlantiCare. That includes our psychiatric emergency services, which is located at the City Hospital, our inpatient services located at our mainland hospital, as well as a wide array of services for the seriously and persistently mentally ill, as well as outpatient services in 3 different locations throughout the county.
And I know we've come a long way since the days when Atlantic Care Behavioral Health was called the Atlantic Guidance Center, and just the perception of getting behavioral health services. Have you seen that turn around a little bit? Is there a little more attitude towards getting services nowadays?
I think the desire and the recognition to need services is growing. There are still some stereotypes out there of people thinking that they are crazy or that there's something wrong with them. The important thing is that people are beginning to understand that behavioral health is part of overall health and part of overall wellness.
And I think we're also seeing some better outcomes in terms of people knowing that services and help is readily available.
Yes, we see year to year increases in the demand for services, both for clinical services, therapy, as well as psychiatry services.
What are some of the common services that people come into ABH for?
A lot of time it's depression, anxiety, dealing with family issues, dealing with circumstances that they just don't seem to be able to handle well on their own, and looking for that extra help to figure out what's going on.
You know, when you're talking about yourself, maybe people put it off. They're going through some issues. They try to put it off to the last minute. What advice do you give people who may feel a little bit of depression or may not be feeling totally there? What should they do? And why should they get help right away?
I think the first thing and most important thing is to acknowledge that it's normal. Most people at one point or another in their life go through some depression, go through some difficult times, and to acknowledge that it's not a weakness and actually a strength to be able to look out for assistance from others.
One of the common issues or requests, I'm sure, are parents looking help for their children. What advice do you give to parents who may see something that they should be reaching out to a health provider like ABH?
Well, I think, again, one of the issues is realize that it's not a deficiency in anything you've done as a parent. That it's okay if you want to reach out and get some help. Just as you would reach out in getting some help if your child was having some educational issues, if you're seeing some issues with them, if you're seeing some signs of depression, if you're seeing some signs of anxiety, that reach out early before it becomes a bigger problem.
Let's talk about the adolescent services per se. And obviously, sometimes you get referred by schools, and there's also available emergency assistance, if you will. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, for children, we have a wide array of services. We have our outpatient services for parents who can call our access center and get an appointment and bring them in and start working with them through therapy. There's medication, if necessary, through our psychiatrists. We also have a community outreach program called our Mobile Response Program that's a entrance through the state system. And they call a single number and they can ask for an outreach to their home and get those services coming out to them that'll last for anywhere from 72 hours for up to a few weeks.
So someone's having a crisis with a child, per se. Would they be able to get a mobile response?
Absolutely. And I would encourage them to, because even if they don't need a response to their home, that person who answers the phone will be able to talk through with them what their needs are, what the situation is, and how dire the situation really is, and help them find the best resources to meet their needs in that moment.
And I know you did mention the access number, a very important number. Is there also another number for critical assistance?
The best number is just to go ahead and call access. If there's a psychiatric emergency, if it's immediate in the way of harm to self or others, 911. I would start with the 911 number just to get that assistance out there.
And let's talk about the outpatient services. And I think that's perhaps taken a big turn from the old days in terms of it's more like a medical practice where you go in and are able to receive both individual services and group services. Tell me a little bit about the outpatient.
Well, the nice thing about outpatient services is that we've got qualified licensed therapists who are all highly educated and can sit down with an individual and focus on what the individual wants to work on. We look and try and make it person-centered and dealing with, right from the beginning, exactly what the individual wants to work on. And we develop treatment plans around that to help them figure out for themselves what's going on. It's more of a guidance than it is a direction.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to talk about some of the disparities in mental health within the Latino community and also some of the expansion that you're going to be having over in the Hamilton area. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bart Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. We continue our discussion with Loyal Onans. He is the Senior Director of Clinical Services for ABH, which is AtlantiCare Behavioral Health. And we were talking about the array of services that ABH offers. And right now you're looking to expand into the Hamilton area. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we've had one office up in the Hamilton area where we've, in that single location, provided adult and children's services. But because of a single location, we've only been able to provide limited services in the way of the number of days that we're up there. We've recently been able to relocate our adult services within the same area, and this allows us to expand the number of days. So we're now at 5 days a week for adult services, and we're moving to 5 days a week once we have the demand up there for children's services also.
So you were providing both adult and children's services from the same area, so you had to kind of play which services you provided at what time. So now you're able to split that and give more attention to both of the services. That's good.
Correct.
Okay. Obviously, the western part, Hamilton area, is very few providers in that area. So certainly having AtlantiCare Behavioral Health there, it's important for that region as well. Let's just move on a little bit about the health disparities that we do have within the Latino community, and something that ABH has been trying to address. I know I've spoken to Julie Drew about putting the word out that we are looking for bilingual, bicultural psychiatrists and therapists, very, very important. Some of the data suggests that Latinos, for example, are more likely to think about suicide or commit suicide than than their male counterparts. That's a disparity that exists. And we also have another disparity in terms of the depression and getting services, that only 36% of Latinos seek help versus 60% of non-Latinos. So we have a wide gap in terms of health disparities, don't we?
Yes, we do. And I think part of that has been what you talked about, as far as making sure that you've got the right providers so that the individual is comfortable in seeking that level of treatment.
Just tell me a little bit about the therapist's role and the psychiatrist's role.
Well, the therapist's role is really to be there for the individual, to focus on what the individual wants to focus on, and be that guide that walks through the issues with them, develops the treatment plan with the individual, so that the focus is always on what the individual wants to accomplish. And the psychiatrist provides a supporting but very important role as far as evaluating the need for medication that can be used as an additional tool during the therapeutic process.
And certainly it's a great career, so anyone that's thinking about those careers, they are in demand, aren't they?
Absolutely. We see very few bilingual individuals coming out of programs, and we definitely encourage that and look forward to bringing them on board.
Let's just switching gears a little bit in terms of the overall services that ABH offers. You mentioned the Access Center. If you call that number, and we'll put it up on the screen, what should you expect when you call that number?
You'll get an individual who answers the phone, who will be looking to see what you're looking for and best direct you to the level of service that meets the need. They get basic information and are able to work with you to come up with the best game plan for where you can get those services.
So if you're having a crisis, you still call that number?
You can call that number. You can also, in case of an emergency situation where someone's thinking of imminently hurting themselves, is just call 911. Get the immediate emergency help you need.
Very important to do that, obviously. And certainly there are other offices throughout South Jersey. Tell me a little bit about the scope of services in terms of where they're located here in South Jersey.
We have services, as we talked about, in Hamilton. We also have outpatient services in Egg Harbor Township, and we have two different locations in Atlantic City. One in the southern end of Atlantic City near Hartford Avenue, and the other at our Healthplex. The interesting thing about the Healthplex location is we offer integrated services there, which provides in one location both behavioral health and primary care.
And ABH is also doing outreach in the community. Can you tell me a little bit about the outreach you're doing to bring mental health awareness to the community?
We are constantly looking for the opportunities to reach out to the community and make them aware that mental health is part of mental wellness and part of overall wellness, and that looking at the body is all part of a single unit.
And that's a good point, particularly when you go visit your healthcare provider. That's an important box you should check off about behavioral health. If someone's in your family, your child is going through some issues, what should they tell their physician?
I think the important thing is to be honest with their physician and not just stick to the medical portion of it. If they have other concerns, share it with your physician. Statistics show that the person who commits suicide or attempts suicide, in many cases, sees their primary care physician within 30 days of that attempt. Wow. Take the opportunity. Let them know about all of your wellness.
An important message for all of us, and certainly for parents as well. Thank you for sharing this information, and thank you for joining us here on Latino Motion. And stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bart Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. A young Latina playwright has captured part of her family's own experience as exiles from Cuba to bring to life a captivating play. Joining me is Iraisa Ann Reilly to talk about her exciting play. Welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what is the name of your play?
It's called One Day Old.
So why is it called One Day Old? And give me a little bit of background.
Right. It's about Operación Pedro Pan, which brought more than 14,000 unaccompanied minors from Cuba to the United States right after the Cuban Revolution in the early 1960s. And it's called One Day Old because it's in the structure of Peter Pan, James Barrie's Peter Pan. And I found a quote from him when I was doing my research about this kind of idea of being one day old and being in a place that's new and not really knowing anything about that place or where you are. So that's why it kind of inspired the title.
Well, let's talk about inspiration. What inspired you to begin this venture to begin with?
Right. Well, originally, I had wanted to write a play straight up about my family coming to the United States and about my grandfather having a bodega here in the U.S. But I wanted to do it as a senior thesis project as a student at Notre Dame about 6 years ago. So I had to do my research in order to get this approved. Right. So I read a book called Operación Pedro Pan by a woman named Yvonne Condé. And I decided to change from just writing about my family to writing about the experience of other Cuban exiles in the United States.
But certainly your family's experience kind of motivated the kind of topic you wanted to cover on the play.
Yeah, it was definitely a huge influence.
You got to think about the 1960s. Fidel Castro was taking power. What motivated those parents to basically let go of their children to come to the United States?
Well, when Fidel Castro took power, he enacted a law called Patria Potestad. So that basically meant that the government had control over everything, including children. There's kind of a debate as to whether that was actually being enforced or not, but the bottom line was parents panicked. And this underground operation happened between Catholic Charities in the United States, the CIA, and different schools within Cuba to bring these children over to the United States. They thought it was going to be temporary, but after the Bay of Pigs, it became evident that they were staying here. Right.
And unfortunately, many of those children lived as orphans here in the United States, and certainly the good and the bad, so to speak, because they did become U.S. citizens and eventually went on to school and made significant careers and contributions here to the United States.
Correct.
Now, tell me about the play. Obviously, it seems to be a little bit of a sad period of time in our history. Is it a sad play? What does it convey?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's kind of dark. There are sort of melancholy elements to it. It is a play about identity and finding an identity both as one character who's first-generation American who doesn't know much about her family, and the characters that are trying to find an identity in a place that they don't identify with, that's new to them, that they don't speak the language. So it's about that, and it's also it's kind of in a world of magical realism. So it has like a lot of spiritual elements.
Do you find yourself in parts of this play?
I would definitely say that I'm in this play. I had said before that I didn't think so, but the more time I spend with it, the more I realize that there's a lot of me in it.
So tell me where the play stands. Obviously, it hasn't been had a curtain call yet,
right.
But where does it stand right now?
It will be performed as a part of the Philadelphia Fringe Festival at the Hamilton Family Arts Center at the Art and Theater in September. And it'll be the first performance of it. And right now we're in our rehearsal process and I'm making edits to it. So it's definitely a work in progress, but the hope is that by September it'll be
But we do have some dates already, right? So
yes.
September 8th through the 11th.
Correct.
And it's also going to be playing on the 15th through the 18th.
Correct, yeah.
So it's down at the Hamilton Family Arts Center in Philadelphia.
Yes.
And obviously you would like to get a good amount of people from the community to come out and see this play.
Yeah, absolutely. From the Latino community, from Philadelphia, South Jersey, where I grew up, it'd be great to great to have a full house.
Now, you obviously have your crew in place and they're rehearsing. What's the sentiment of the crew right now?
I feel like everybody is really supportive and there with me kind of on this journey. Everyone's excited to work on a new play with the playwright in the room. You don't get to do that too often. So,
what advice do you give young writers or young playwrights that want to write their own story?
I would say, well, don't be afraid to do it and don't be afraid to put it out there, first of all, and to ask questions, especially young Latinos, to ask questions of your family, to find out more about yourself and to persevere. I know that's
key.
Yeah.
Persevere. Iraisa, wish you a lot of success in your play, and thank you for joining us here on Latino Motion. And thank you for joining us once again here on Latino Motion.
Choose quality, value, distinction. Choose Stockton.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by AtlantiCare, healthcare you can believe in. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.